Have you been wanting to get started with an AI-based coding assistant, but feeling a little intimidated? Or maybe you want to use it to create a product that you don't have the technical chops to do otherwise? Or maybe even you know how to code and you're just looking to get ahead of the curve? This is the video you've been waiting for. Cursor is a fork of Visual Studio Code that has AI assistants built in to make you more productive. In this video, I'm going to give you that little boost you need to start using Cursor without feeling overwhelmed. Let's go. We'll start off by going over to cursor.com and clicking the download button. After the download's done, open the installer. This will take a little bit, but I'm just going to fast forward through mine. During the install, I'm going to note the important bits and let you figure out the rest. First, I will recommend that you leave the Codebase Wide Embeddings option selected. It's going to make your life a little easier later on. Cursor creates embeddings that are basically markers about your code so that similar code can be found and used that match what you're trying to accomplish. Embeddings and metadata are stored in the cloud, even if your code is not, so that when you ask Cursor to do something, it can accomplish it without scanning your entire code base. I also recommend that you install both the code and Cursor commands. You may never use them, but you might. If you currently use VS Code, you should probably allow Cursor to import your extensions, or you're likely to have to come and install each one later on yourself. This next one might be important for you. It's an option to allow Cursor to collect usage data or not. To me, there's plenty of information at their fingertips already, so I always enable privacy mode. Besides, I pay for a subscription, and I think that's enough. I'm giving them money. They can go without my data. To stop abuse, Cursor does require that you create an account. For starters, you get a 14-day free trial, and in that 14 days, you can make up to 50 fast requests, which is mostly what you will use. Those 50 don't include code completions. These are 50 server-based calls. So click the sign up button and then walk through that process. Eventually, you'll be prompted to enable Cursor, but it'll look a little different than mine. I already have an account that I'm logged into in my browser, so I can just click Login. And after that, you should be ready to go. I'm going to open a new folder so I can show off a few things, starting with a clean slate. I'll create a new test project folder and select it. There's a chance you will need to update Cursor as soon as you download it, like it's prompting me to do in the bottom left. I recommend that you always update if you are prompted. The feature that is being rolled out may be the one you're looking for. I've not been burnt by shoddy updates so far, and until I am, I'll just trust them to roll out a good product. Except this time. This time, I'll close the prompt and continue on. In the top left, there should be a little welcome area that showcases some of Cursor's features. Feel free to go through them, but be warned, if you close this, you can't get it back. At least I wasn't smart enough to figure out how to get it back without deleting all my Cursor folders and program files and app data, and that's a bit of a pain. The AI features in Cursors can be opened with this button here near the top right. It opens up a chat pane. I use chat primarily for two different things, fixing errors or enhancing or changing stuff that already exists, but we'll come back to that later on. If you click Ctrl-Shift-P, you can open the command palette and we can keep moving. I want to take a look at Cursor's settings. The General tab allows you to set rules for the AI to follow regardless of which project you're working on, meaning it applies to all projects that you work on. Below the rules text area, there's an option for a Cursor rules file, which you can set project-specific rules in the directory of each project. I recommend that you use the different Cursor rules files for each project, unless you have a fairly rigorous tech stack, like you always use SQL Server, you always use React or Angular. If those might change between projects, definitely go the Cursor rules file path. The General tab also has an option for you to enable or disable the privacy mode that we talked about earlier. So in case you made the wrong selection, or if you change your mind, just come back here, toggle it on or off. The Models tab lets you choose which LLMs Cursor will use, and you can also add your own API keys here for different models. Most of the API models, though, are going to require you to pay additional fees per use, so I just stick with what Cursor has selected already. The Features tab is probably going to look different. Yours will look different than mine, depending on where Cursor is in its lifetime. There are two important things here, though. First is codebase indexing. If you ever find that Cursor seems out of touch and it's just giving you just wrong answers, your codebase might need to be resynced. This has happened to me twice, and the first time it was pretty confusing. Cursor was just giving really crazy answers, and I couldn't figure out why. The second time it was more obvious, and I knew pretty fast what was going on. Both times my PC was under really hard pressure, like extreme load, processing video files. You can also add documents here. For example, if you're using a version of a library that's not been widely available yet, you can provide some documentation, and that will make your life a little easier. You can also use requirements documentation here, but unless you're only ever going to work on one project, you want to include those as context in your project, composer, and chat files or chat panes. Next is the beta tab. This one too is going to look different depending on where Cursor is at. You can test out features that aren't fully fleshed out yet, or options that Cursor plans to make standard going forward. Right now, Composer is a beta feature, and if that's the case for you, I definitely recommend that you toggle that one on. It's really the magic behind Cursor. Next, let's go over a little bit of use. If you enabled Composer, you can open it with the shortcut Control-I. It opens a little floating window, but I prefer it as a pane. You can toggle it from the floating window to a pane with Control-D. Typically, I'm an ASP.NET Core and Angular guy, but this time let's do a little something different. I'll create a React app, and you want to talk to the AI like you would a person. It can understand pretty much anything you're going to type, and it also makes a great deal of inferences based off of what you say. As a complete layman, you probably need some kind of prompting. You might tell it what you want to do, and it will tell you how to accomplish it. Personally, I know that Vite or Vite is the new best hot way to create React apps, so I'm going to go with that route. I've not done it before, but how hard can it be, right? Okay, so it's providing step-by-step instructions, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'll copy and paste each one into a terminal. So we're creating the React app with Vite or Vite using npm. Oh, if you don't have npm installed, you can grab it from npmjs.org. And if you're doing anything, and I do mean anything client-based, npm it's practically going to be a requirement. Next, we're changing to the folder npm just created. Then we're running npm install.
And here's your friendly reminder to like and subscribe. We post new videos often for software developers, software engineers, and software architects. Thanks.
And finally, npm run dev, which will start up the server. I shortened the npm install and npm run dev so it looks practically instant, but trust me, it wasn't. It takes a bit. And there we are, step by step, very nice. The app is running. That's awesome. Back in the editor, I want to show a couple more shortcut keys that you might find useful. First is Control-Shift-J. This opens the Cursor Settings tab, the same one that we viewed earlier. Next, if you highlight some code or an error, you can add that selected code to the chat window with Control-Shift-L. And then you can ask Cursor questions about the code, so if you're confused or wondering about something, or if there's errors, you can point it out and it will help you with it, including really painstaking definitions for everything inside of the code. Next, you can open what's called the Edit panel with Control-K. It does a lot of what the chat does, but it does it in place. If you do have the Edit panel open, you can toggle back and forth into your code and the edit pane with Control-Shift-K. If you're using the edit window, Control-Shift-K. If you're not using the edit window, Control-Shift-K will pop Composer out of the pane view and back into the floating window view. And then Control-D sends it back to the pane. In the Chat and Composer panes both, you're able to add context to what you're asking the AI do. Typically, you're going to open up or add specific files that you want to focus on. But you can also add screenshots of UIs that you're trying to duplicate, or documentation from libraries, as I said before, or entire requirements documents that you create to kind of guide the creation of your product. Now, I want to get a little more exposure to Composer. Chat is nice, but Composer is like its bigger, badder brother. I'm going to give it some directions and see what we can get from it just with a simple prompt. I want this app to handle scheduling. I want to be able to add time blocks into the app and then invite people by email address to view that schedule, and based off of how much time they need, create an appointment for themselves in my schedule. After that happens, no one else can schedule in that time block. Pretty straightforward, but if you're experienced, you'll know there's a lot missing here. Like, there's a lot of things I did not say. I didn't provide instructions on a lot of things, but a requirements document would typically cover that, but I just want to see what it's going to do. And you'll notice that I typed it in plain English. There's no special instructions here. I just told it what I want, and it creates some code. Now, you shouldn't do this without understanding, but I'm just going to blindly trust what it gives me and click accept all. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, great. See the error? If you look, when an error occurs, you'll see that the tab of the file in the top pane or the top tab strip will be red, and the file name in the Explorer pane will also be red. This is perfect because I was hoping an error would happen so I could show you how to go about getting it resolved. If you hover over the error and click AI Fix in Chat, it will add the error text to chat, and then you can say, hey, this error happened, what can I do to fix it? If you're not an experienced developer, you're probably going to do this a lot. Experienced devs will likely want to fix most of them themselves. It's sometimes easier that way. Now, I want to keep this video short, so I'm going to skip over fixing the remaining errors. Just know that I had to do AI Fix in Chat 3 times, and this is what it gave me. A pretty decent looking UI. It's at least got stubs for the functionality we needed, like our add time block. And that's it, man. You're ready to go build your app. If you enjoyed this video, watch this one where I give some good tips on making the most of Cursor. Until next time, happy coding.